Mm.
And all what you guys were saying is with trolls, even though they're gonna have free reign, you can explain and you can teach people what's actually correct and fact, not just obviously use the on a like another word. It's explaining what it actually is.
Hmm. Test 1, 2. All right. Welcome to the live stream. Check out the links, please, in the description. Give me a second here. Per usual, I have to do all the links. Autism Awareness Day today, and not sure if a lot of you folks know, but I actually live with autism spectrum disorder. But first, let's, like I said, let's grab some links here. Paste some link. I gotta. Okay, we're gonna go to my channel. Hopefully it'll share, copy link. Right, we're gonna hop out of that. Yeah, lots of dead air. Don't you love it? Okay, we're going to copy that and we're going to share and post that. Close that out. We're going to hop on Twitter. Oh, Twitter's been going all kinds of crazy here. What's this now? Okay. Oh my God. Anyway, I'm not going to have Twitter on right now just because, you know, you hear some lava popping and stuff. All right. Apparently I don't have access to that, which is weird because I should. Oh well. Is there one in here? No, there's not. Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to close that all out. So I don't know how long I'm going to be live streaming today, but I do know that this is also for me kind of like a April Fool's type thing. I don't know, maybe not. I had fun with April Fool's Day yesterday. It was pretty good. I don't know about you guys, but I had quite a bit of fun with April Fool's Day yesterday. My thing is that I was telling everyone that I won the lottery, Powerball or something like that. So, yeah, it was pretty funny actually. A couple of people actually fell for it, believe it or not. Which, mm-hmm. And one of the oh. Mm-hmm. Oh boy, people getting all fired up on. We'll leave that for another live stream. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize that I have whatever you want to call it. I have ASD, autism spectrum disorder. It means that I perceive and process the world around me very differently than other people. And that can be problematic sometimes because it's like my brain speaks a slightly different language than everyone else's in terms of actual neurological function. So let me try to explain. So the first part, before I start explaining that, is that being autistic does not mean that there's anything actually wrong with you. It simply means, or anyone. So when you hear someone's autistic, it doesn't mean that there's anything specifically, quote unquote, wrong. It just means that their neurological processing sort of circuitry is just different. It's just different. Now, there are people who are very debilitated by very severe versions of ASD that really, really cut into both social interaction and self-expression. And thankfully, I don't have the more severe sort of end of the spectrum. That would be pretty terrible because I wouldn't even be able to do this. Now, don't get me wrong. I sometimes feel like I would love to just never speak to anyone ever again. Sometimes it's a lot of effort to just communicate even out loud outside of my own head. I am famous in my circle of family and friends for my talking to myself conversations. You might be like, oh, well, everyone does that. It's like, not like I can. It's kind of interesting thing to explain. But I've been digging for a while. I'll show you guys what I've been doing here. But so when you look at a car, you might see the paint color, if it has paint. You might see like, I don't know, the general shape of it. You might think, I like that or I don't like it. Just, you might not look into it. You might not look any further than I like that car, I don't like that car, it's a red car, blah, 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 blah. Or a truck, or, oh, those are big wheels. Kind of like that. You know, that's, I think most people, see, I can't even understand I don't know how most people process when they look at a car. I know in some parts of the world, cars are, I mean, they're there, they exist, but maybe they're not really, yeah. But I guess my point is that when I look at a car, I don't see a car. I don't think I've ever seen anything when I look at it. What does that mean exactly? What that means is when I look at a car, I see every single possible little story about where that car has come from and what it's made out of and the history of all of the technological development and everything. Like it's so hard to explain. So when I look at a car, the first thing I see is the first thing my brain tends to do is see if it's functional. The first thing I do is that a car, or is it some sort of art statement? Is it a piece of art? Is it actual a car? Can you drive it? Is it operational? Or is it something else? Is it artwork or sculpture, or is it something that needs repair, something like that? I think that, is it a whole car? And is that what I'm actually looking at? I think that's probably the first thing I kind of register. Oh, what the heck is this now? I'm not really sure if I want to deal with all this stuff. Okay, so let me just dig through this here. There we go, much better. So anyway, I'll see that, you know, if it's made out of steel, I'll think about all the things related to iron and mining and all that stuff. You know, I'm going to bring this water down over here. Okay, we're going to do this. Yeah, and we're going to dig through that. So I mean, I'll see the tires, like the development of. I'll see the development of tires and wheels and that whole thing. And ooh, look, that's going to be an issue, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay, so let's plug this guy up here. Wait for this to drain out. Yeah, I mean, I don't just see a car. I've never just seen a car. I'm using a car as an example because they're everywhere. You know, they're not just, you know, a local thing for me here where I live. When I see a sign, I see what kind of lighting does it have? The history of all the light bulbs, how the light bulbs are made, how the machines. I mean, it's literally like this encyclopedia gets opened. And it's not just even an encyclopedia. It's like, yeah, it's this whole entire thing just opens up in my head, and it just goes on and on and on forever. So it's, like I said, it's really hard to explain, really, because I don't see what you see. I see something else. Ooh, there we go. Speaking of seeing something, I see diamonds. I'll look around for more. Is there any more here? Yeah, look how many diamonds I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stacks and 7 diamonds. That's the most I think I've ever had, and it's just from this little tunnel here, just a little tunnel. Nothing crazy. Well, I have 10, but I don't have any flint and steel, which means, yeah, it's not really super useful right now. I could get flint and steel. I have this, yeah, so could. Probably not going to. So yeah, like when I look at this, when I'm looking at this computer screen, I don't see a computer screen necessarily. That's why video games sometimes are good for me when I can sort of take myself out of my current situation, which might be, I don't know, mentally overwhelming because I'm constantly thinking of literally every piece of information that I know about the door handle of a car. You know, if I look out the window, I see a tree. I don't just see a tree. I see like how it grows in soil, and I see like what type of tree it is, and the range of where it can grow, and it's a little bit overwhelming at times, and yeah, it's so one of the main reasons I'm not doing the face camera today is you might be able to tell I have a bit of a cold. I'm kind of, yeah, so I'm not doing well health wise lately, but I think the cold's on its way out. A few days ago, oh my gosh, I was really in some pretty dire straits. I slept for 20 hours the other day. It was really bad. My body was just hit real hard, and then it just kind of took hold, and then I've been getting kind of better ever since. But as you can see, I can just keep going on and on and on and on and on. It might not be relevant. That's the other thing. Is it relevant? Probably not. All right, let's mine this. I'm running out of patience with lava, so I think I'm just gonna... Normally I would do this big elaborate thing, but you'll see why I'm not doing that anymore in a moment. And look at that, more diamonds. Look at this. Look at this. Oh my god. That's 2 different veins of diamonds, by the way. 2 of them. 2 separate ones. Alright, that seems good. Make sure this is all properly lit up. We don't want anything spawning down here. There are a few parts of this that are open to a cave, but I'm not going to... So I'm on Empire Minecraft here. But I'm not going to be linking to that or anything like that. You can look at some of my other Empire Minecraft videos if you're interested in joining EmpireMinecraft.com. But there's a link in the live stream / video description. One goes to a Twitch feed. It's a live stream. They're doing a sort of like a awareness type live stream, which is really cool. It's the first thing I've seen of that. I have not seen this guy's particular sort of raising awareness live stream before, but it's very cool. And they're having a big conversation about all the relevant topics of, you know, autism spectrum disorder and so on and so forth. And it's pretty cool. I'm not really sure if I want. There we go. And no, it's pretty cool actually. You know, I have a shovel here. Why am I not using the shovel? It's like it's in the hot bar too, which, yeah. So the only downside about actually flint is that I can get lost in my mental encyclopedias of stuff. And unfortunately, sometimes people have to go along with my giant exploration of the history of the East India Company while I'm explaining to them what. I mean, I just have to stop there because it's, yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of information in my head, and none of it really ever leaves. And sometimes it's hard to, when I'm not doing Minecraft stuff, when I'm not doing video games is one of my go-to sort of, it lets me sort of come out of myself a little bit. So I'm not so, sort of tied up in my own head, if that makes any sense. Oh, yeah, I have no tolerance right now for any of this stuff. But this, oh, okay, I can swap this out down here. So I'm going to just, okay, so we got some more diamonds going on here. That's cool. This is crazy. I don't think I've ever gotten this many diamonds ever playing Minecraft. It's really insane. Look at that. 1, 2, oh my. 4.5 stacks of diamond. I'm just going to make my life a bit easier because there's a cave here and I don't want any little friendly visitors coming down to see me here. Like, no offense. But anyway, yeah. Now, I went to school back in the 80s and 90s. Not sure if I mentioned my age before, but I'm 38 years old. And it's been a real challenge in my life, not just for me, but for my family and friends and people I care about. It's been a real challenge for them dealing with me as well. It's not always been easy. Dude, you're not invited. Oh, there we go. Good. Oops, nope. How about we just do it like that, and like that, and like that. There we go. Much better. So anyway, I used to be put on Ritalin because I would have trouble focusing, or so they thought. What would I do when I was on Ritalin? What would happen when the sort of like the effects of Ritalin would sort of take hold? I would literally sit in my room for hours and just read and read and read and read. And I would just absorb so much information. I have like 300 National Geographics. And when I was a younger person, I read, I think, all of them cover to cover. I think I read all of them. There may have been a few, maybe 5 or 6. See, I can actually remember. I could go on and on and on, thinking about and talking about which ones I read. And like there was the one about chocolate and the cultural significance of chocolate and all that stuff. From a culinary perspective, from a cultural perspective, like, people, wealthy people importing it from the New World. And so I could just go on and on and on and on. And it's not like, hey, look at me. It's more like I don't have a choice. This is how my brain is like this. There's no off switch. You know that thing where, oh, just ignore it. I can't. So that makes a challenge for me. That sometimes things can be very overwhelming because I don't have an off switch. I just keep absorbing information, even if my brain really can't handle it anymore. I have sort of like an intake maximum, sort of like YouTube. I can only ingest information at such a rate. Once that rate gets reached, you need to be quiet now. Like, please be quiet. I'm begging you to please be quiet. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had an argument with my girlfriend. And that's another thing that I'll get into in a sec. But I'll get into an argument with my girlfriend because she'll keep going and going and going and going and going. I mean, everything that she's saying is most likely completely and utterly legitimate and so on and so forth. But I literally just can't handle any more talking about that particular topic. Like, it needs to move on and let's talk about something else now. Or else I'll freak out, like, massively, because I'm just like, I'm maxed out, you know what I mean? So, and that's really something that my family has had to deal with in the past as well. It's been really challenging. Like, once I'm done, I am done, and I have to sort of go into this almost sensory deprivation situation, because if I get any more stimulation, that's the other, there's like two parts of it. There's one where I can't get enough stimulation, and then there's another part where it's like, it's too much. I think we had an agreement here that we're not dealing with lava anymore. So I think I'm just gonna usually I make these elaborate little causeways with like little walls on each side and like a path down the middle. Just because this is below. This is below. As you can see, the lava is lower or higher. I'm lower than the surface of the lava here. But yeah, it's been a challenge as an adult, because people see this 6 foot whatever guy, and they see me, and they think, oh, look, that there's some guy. But what they don't see, and maybe what they don't want to see, is that I do not process the world the same as they do. I have limitations. I have no filter. So I'll say stuff that is very inappropriate for the moment and upsetting, because I don't have that social circuitry in my head. I really don't, for the most part. I mean, I do a little bit. I mean, I'm not completely sort of helpless when it comes to social situations, but it's definitely a massive challenge. Massive, massive challenge on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis. And so that's the other thing about autism that a lot of people don't understand or misinterpret. It's like, there's nothing. Oh my God, I almost got rid. Okay, I'm just going to do this. Hey, what the heck? Whew. That could have been bad. Wow. Sorry for a little diversion there. That's the other thing that people don't quite understand. There are some people on the spectrum that really have very severe difficulties and challenges with processing information in a way that is sort of like output compatible with most other people. And a lot of people think that means that there's, I don't know, the mental deficiency or something like that. But no, it's actually the opposite. It's so much stimulation internally, that we need some sort of external something that to reach us and bring us out of ourselves sometimes. And the other thing that I want to touch on, I mentioned a minute ago, like I have a girlfriend, and there are some like psychologists and stuff that think that like that shouldn't be possible. Like, oh well, you're fine then. Like, no, dude, I'm really not. And you just get totally discounted. Like, there are so many different ideas about how people should be and how they shouldn't be. Even when you are diagnosed with something, there's always going to be some kind of judgment, or people are going to assumptions and stuff like that. There's always going to be something like that, and it's really quite frustrating and hurtful and very counterproductive, I would say. Even I think that might be a good word to use. Like, for me personally, I can't speak for everyone on the spectrum, but for me personally, when I'm asked to do a new task, sometimes I freak out a little bit because, it's like, whoa, what am I doing here? Like, I've been putting these on the left side for the last 2 hours, and now I'm putting them on the right side because eventually I'm going to have to dig up on this. And I kind of want to be able to see where it's cut out to climbing up without having to look through a whole bunch of torches like that. And that's throwing me off because there's a routine. When I say routine, I mean just a certain way you do things. And when the routine is disrupted, that can be very emotionally, mentally sort of disruptive as well for some people on the spectrum, myself included, to a varying degree. That's why it's called a spectrum. But so girlfriend, well, how can I have a girlfriend? Well, it's not easy. I'll tell you that one right now. She can tell you that. It seems like myself in particular, it seems like I can sort of zone in on one person and make a connection with them, but it's not easy, and it can be very, very, very frustrating. And, transit biker, why aren't you grabbing that ore? Because 58, let's see, 59, 60, 61, 62. Oops. There, happy? Like, I don't like having not full, like that bothers me. Not because I have like some sort of compulsive thing about having full stacks of ore, but it's just like, that's not, ooh, more diamonds, squirrel, more diamonds. Wow, I can't even believe this. Craziness, I'm telling you. In any case, so like, what that is a perfect segue actually into another thing, is that for me personally, things have to make sense or else they are very frustrating. Like, why wouldn't you help someone if you could help them? Why be heartless when you have the capability of improving someone else's life? Wouldn't you want them to do that for you? Isn't the goal here to sort of, bring all the ships up at once? Rising tide. That's one of my favorite. It's one of my go-to sort of phrases. Rising tide lifts all boats, unless the boat is like damaged. But then maybe you know, the boats that have that are lifted up from the tide rising, they can go out and do commercial ventures and come back and have money to repair the boats that are in the dry dock and the boats that have like holes that are kind of sitting sadly, either moored or not, just kind of sitting there all foundered and full of water, half sticking out of the water, or sitting on the bottom of the marina or whatever, you know. But a rising tide lifts all boats. I've always liked that because it does, you know, unless the boat is like in ill repair and so whatever, but you're not going to be sailing on that boat. You're not going to be using that one. So maybe it doesn't matter. The boat that you're taking is, you know, it's already seaworthy. So, oh, and speaking of seaworthy, Game of Thrones coming up in a couple of days. Not too far off now. 16 days or 14th, 14th. 11 days, something like that. I don't even know. I can't do math right now. 12 days? 12 days. Yeah. So we're coming up here. I can't even believe this. I'm going to have to like empty out more of my inventory to make room for all these diamonds. That's a problem I don't mind at all. Let's make sure there's no... I've seen some compound diamond ore veins here. It's very interesting, actually. A compound means like maybe there's two here and then there's more up here, or might even just be a block away. So anytime you see diamonds, always mine around it. Make a... What is this? What is this? Is this a mine shaft? I think this... No, is this mine? No, this isn't mine. Oh, someone... I actually have to build up here. This is a little bit frustrating. All right. Actually, looks like someone else had a similar idea. Okay, so we're at 0, which is cool. So which means that we can start building our little stairs here up to the ocean, I guess. Hope my pickaxe lasts. Pretty sure it should. But one of the things that I've heard is that, you know, people on the spectrum, they have difficulty with empathy. I don't think that's the case. I personally, if anything, empathy is overwhelming. It's like hard to deal with, difficult, challenging, nearly impossible to deal with empathy, because empathy means processing other people. And if you're already going through the entire encyclopedia of the history of cars and so blah, 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 you realize how complicated people are? Oh my gosh. People are so complicated. And the more complicated something is, the more challenging it can be to sort of process it. I mean, that's kind of like a no duh, but yeah, it's overwhelmingly crazy to process another human being. And the fact that I kind of can a little bit, that's what I can do. I can focus on one person aside from myself. And that just happens to me, my girlfriend, in my case. So this is the wasteland here on Empire Minecraft. It's sort of like a separate world from everything else, where you can gather resources, and it gets reset. You know, everything gets kind of all plundered and the map is limited. I think it's like 4. I think it's like 16,000 blocks wide or something like that. I don't remember if it's. Let's see. I think it's between 12 and 16,000 blocks wide. Anyway, so but there's outposts around 4,000 blocks apart, approximately. So we'll go back real quick and we'll check it out. And do please make sure you check out the links in the video description. So I'm going to come up here and, all right, so I think I should dig this first because you guys will see why I've done this. It's kind of an interesting, probably one of the more irritating projects I've undertaken. Well, that's not good. Kind of run out of food here. Yeah, so where was I? But, you know, see, I'm pausing because I have to think. I have to translate from, well, I'm not going on about what I'm doing in Minecraft. It can be difficult to sort of, you know, I can go on and on and on and on and on, but I want to stay relevant to, you know, the situation and stuff. All right, so we're going to come up here on the ocean. So it was, why am I? Okay. All right, so there's the outpost right there. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. But it's not complete yet. So I'll show you guys what I was doing in a second here. But first, this is sort of like the far end of the, I'm basically done this now, this little project. But it's not completely done until this little stairs is put in here. I still can't believe how many diamonds I found. That's pretty insane. But it's not really insane given the amount of digging I've done, probably. Right, see how I can talk about the game and I can just kind of zone in on that? When it comes to people and people's emotions and stuff, that right there can get tricky and what am I doing? Oh, this way. Whee! Ha ha ha. Flying down. I need to just, there we go. Refill. Anyway, it's really challenging and difficult for me to really get other people. When I say get other people, I mean tune in to what is relevant for them. And that is what makes autism spectrum disorder challenging for me, is I am a big kind of hearted person, and I care a lot, and it's very difficult to translate that sometimes into action or expression. You know, people see some big, tall guy, and they don't see me. I know what that was all about. Oh, it's the water. That's right, there was water there before. Say there's a situation going on that's like really difficult and challenging for everyone. Well, it's challenging for me too. I might not show it. And I think sometimes, especially, you know, with people in my life, because I don't express that that it's challenging for me, that I'm having trouble, that I'm having difficulty with the situation or something, they think that I'm totally fine, and I might not be fine at all. That is such a huge challenge for me. And yeah, I mean, it's not just challenging for me, but it's not just challenging for me. It's challenging for the people in my life as well. You know, because they have to, when I'm not being expressive, which is a lot of the time. Just keep your eye out on that XYZ meter, by the way. When I'm not being expressive, which is a lot of the time, they kind of have to guess what's going on in my head, which is basically impossible. You know, so it's almost like I can't talk, even though I can talk. You know, it's I don't know. It's such a difficult thing to explain. Mainly because your processing of the world is different. When I look out the window and see a tree and waving in the breeze, I see it differently than you do. Not just because we're different people, but because neurologically, structurally, my brain actually processes it in a different way. And someone else on the spectrum might process it another way. Like there's no like set way when you're on the spectrum. It doesn't work like that, really. At least I don't think it does. But yeah, it can be quite frustrating when you're like when you see the problem and you see the solution and you're doing the solution, but the other person that you're like trying to help out, they see that, oh no, that's not what I need. I need someone to blah 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 blah. But what they might not be seeing is that the best way to get what they want is to do the thing that you're doing first, but they might not know that. And that's where the communication comes in. Like you might just know that this is the best, the best way to go about it. And that's suddenly you become, teacher mode, where you're literally, instead of doing the thing that needs to be done, you're now explaining why you're doing the thing, something, differently than they may have, ended up doing it themselves, kind of thing. And that is where my girlfriend and I very frequently have friction, because she processes things one way, and she has a brilliant mind. She thinks she has like a beautiful, amazing mind, and I love it, and it's incredible. And I feel so fortunate that, regardless of ASD and all that I found someone who's as incredible as she is. But the way that she thinks about things is just so interesting. but it's not the same way that I think about things, the same way that I process things, even just as an individual, regardless of the autism spectrum disorder and all that. So she'll freak out at me for doing one thing, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't want you to do this. I wanted you to do that." It's like, well, to do that, I need to do this first, and she may have not thought of it that way. Well, on the spectrum, it's always not thought of it that way. It's always something. It's always something. And one of the big challenges I personally have had was just in people in general is you might not understand why I'm doing something, but it's for a reason. Like, it's always for a reason. There's always a specific reason, really specific. There's a reason. There's a thought process behind every single thing that I do, without exception, basically. Like, what am I doing? Am I picking up? I think I'm picking up flint. Because I started out with like 3 and now I have 17. There's some more flint. Yeah, so I'm picking up flint, which is cool. Anyway, so as you can see there, I could just zoom right into the game and talk about picking up flint, blah, 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 blah. And it's so easy and fluid for me to talk about that. But it's not easy at all for me to talk about how I process things and what that challenge is and so on and so forth. I think I'm going to be building another portal at some point here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that, like, when you say those words, you have autism or that person is autistic, you have to understand that that's not an insult. It's really, 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 really not. But on the other side of that coin, when you say someone has autism, you have to remember that there isn't a fixed thing that says, oh, this is autism. It just means that you have a certain neurological sort of functionality, and it can be very mild and sort of very workable, or it can be very severe and debilitating and closed off to the world. And I'm so thankful that that I'm not completely closed off to the world. I think that would be kind of a waste of my existence, to be honest with you. But then the other side of that, there's all these coins. The other side of that coin, this coin, that coin, whatever. The other side of that coin is that because I'm sort of functional and not completely debilitated by this whole thing, that people have all these sudden expectations. Functionality-wise, day-to-day living, functioning, job, schedule, like trying to keep a schedule. I can't really keep a good schedule. I really rely very heavily on a whole bunch of other things to sort of keep my life kind of moving forward, sort of what I would call typical pace. I'm not going to use the word normal because that's not really, as I've told my girlfriend's son, normal is a setting on an appliance. It is not how you define a person. And I really do believe that too. It makes a lot of sense to me. It rings very true in my opinion. That, normal to me is normal to me doesn't mean anything. It just has no meaning to me. Because what is normal? It's very subjective, I think. I mean, is it what you're used to? Is it what we should expect? I mean, I think there are so many different words that you could use aside from, you know, normal. I don't think that the word normal is useful. And I don't know. When I think of normal, I think of like settings on a game, like for real. That's what I think. Oh, stuck. Oh, come on. There we go. Anyway, yeah, I think of like settings and preferences. I don't think of how people behave. I can think that people have a typical behavior, but never quote unquote normal. Like my typical behavior is on live streams is sort of like there's like an entertaining part of it, and then there's like a more sort of focused part of it. And anytime you do content creation, you're going to have sort of like a signature of how your content sort of evolves. Like, what am I looking at here? What am I watching? What is the sort of tone and character kind of thing? There we go. The tone and character. What's the character of this live stream, of this content? What's the gist of all this? That's what people who create have to deal with. You have to sort of figure out what your message is, what your style is, even. And if you can figure that out, then you got things, sorted pretty well for yourself. Because you go through your whole life and not know who you are, what you want, and so on and so forth. And that's a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to have to sort of live with and deal with. I'm 38 years old, but I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what I want and what's important to me. And I feel really fortunate that I have things that way sort of in my head, because there are so many people that are much older than me that still have no idea, and they're way off in left field, and they're just suffering, and it's really unfortunate. And when I finally figured out that I was on the autism spectrum, that just made I can't even tell you that day. A lot of people don't want to be diagnosed with stuff. This, to me, was sort of like, it's like the Hallelujah chorus, like, now finally it makes sense how I am the way I am. It finally, after all these years, I always felt like I just saw the world differently. I just never really sort of related fully to people around me. Like, I could never really be like, oh yeah, like nodding my head, thinking like, what are they talking about, But it was exciting for me to have that sort of revelation, because finally I have a definition, a thing. I now know what's going on with me, and all the puzzle pieces just fit into place, and it was just I had a moment. It was a beautiful, amazing moment. Let's grab that one. And it was really sort of, I could sort of exhale at that point, because I couldn't figure out quite what was going on with myself. And wasn't there an ender chest here? Sorry, a little distracted. I'm pretty sure I put an ender chest here somewhere. Maybe someone took it. I'm not sure. anyway, but yeah, being diagnosed was not some like Darth Vader. No, it wasn't that for me at all. It was like, oh, that makes a huge amount of sense. More sense than anything anyone else had suggested. And they originally thought I had like ADD and all that, but that might still be part of it. But being on the spectrum is a blessing and a curse. I mean, I don't believe in religion and all that stuff, but it's just using the vernacular. It is definitely a blessing and a curse. So we don't want to take it from right. Okay, so we're gonna. Okay, that's fine. Oh, geez, I already had one in there. Look at that. Okay, I'm just gonna pop this back in here real quick. There we go. Actually, we're going to do that because I need to be able to do this. Why do I need to be able to do this? Because, yes. There we go. Much better. But yeah, so like I said, just check out the link in the live stream description, video description after it goes in the archive, and just think about donating. Autism Speaks. It's not a big thing to donate to. It's not a big deal to give money to this. It's a big deal to help out, though. It is a big deal to help out. And just acknowledge that, people do have autism. And people do have functionality issues and challenges. And people do have individual limitations and skills and abilities that when you're on the spectrum, it might not be the best time all the time. You might have challenges that are extremely frustrating and stymieing and really put a block on who you are, the rest of who you are. But if you let it define you, then I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But I think also being like I'm on the spectrum can also be saying those words can also be very freeing and very sort of liberating, freeing, whatever you want to call it. It can just do a world of good for your mental health and your stress levels and stuff. Because even if you can't do anything about it, at least it's almost like being told that I have to go to. I can't explain that. Say you need to visit the Acme rock grinding company and to repair your stone countertop, and you have 30 days to do that. No address, no nothing. What country is it in? That's what it's like being on the spectrum and not having like a diagnosis. You don't know who you are. You just think that what's going on with me. It's very, 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 very amazing to finally figure out what's going on with yourself. Knowing yourself is such a big deal, and I think that there's a lot of rudeness and vulgarity and unnecessary sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Just unnecessary, crude, and uncouth sort of behavior and mannerisms that people seem to think are acceptable when it comes to like treating the word autistic as like a joke, as like part of a joke. Like, you don't do that, because it doesn't necessarily mean something bad. That's another thing. If you want to be real technical about it, it doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It just means slightly different. Unlike in Minecraft, we're not all identical. We're not. We can't be. Even if twins were on the spectrum, they would both be different. Even if just by a little bit. And it's really important to acknowledge when you are guilty of, spreading stereotypes and perpetuating stereotypes, especially when it comes to mental and emotional health, because it's not on the outside. There's not some big stream of blood. There's not some, I'm not missing a finger or something. It's not a visible thing. It's just something that you have to just understand, which for some folks is kind of like a step too far, it seems, which in and of itself is really frustrating. I mean, unbelievably frustrating. Holy cow, frustrating. Oh, I actually want to see if there are I'll just use ones. Remember that whole thing about whole stacks? Yeah. I wasn't even kidding about that. Oh my gosh. All right, so I'm going to put my little step here. So anyways, folks, I need some lunch. I need some lunch, and I really hope that you check out Autism Speaks and donate. When you donate to them, you can check out all the different benefits it has on their website and all the different things that they do. I actually, ironically enough, a few years back, one of my, I don't remember if it was a family member or a friend, gave me a few dollars to do this raffle. They had all these different baskets, and one of them was a sort of a semi-local, not quite regional, but definitely local autism awareness and assistance sort of charity, nonprofit. And I won their basket, and it was awesome. It was so cool. I talked to the people, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm on the spectrum, and this is really cool, and I'll be, giving these little things away to people, and yeah, so whatever you can do to help someone become the fullest version of themselves, don't associate autism with less than. If I were to give one piece of advice to someone listening to this right now and not knowing what autism is all about, I would say never associate autism, that word, or autistic with less than, or less able than. It's just different. Just like the wires in most houses, I would say 99.999% of the houses, people's brains, if people's brains were houses, 99.99% of people's brains are wired basically the same. So there's all these basically identical looking houses. If all that was in the houses was the wiring, no plumbing or anything. Okay, so all the wiring is the same. People who are on the spectrum have a whole bunch of different wiring, and my suggestion is, if you have someone on the spectrum in your life, is to give them time and give them space and try to understand how you can help them, because they will most likely want to help you. I can almost guarantee you that, actually. So anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. It's been a little over an hour. I thank anyone who's been watching. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. A moment, please. Just want to thank everyone for watching, and be the kindness, be the change you want to see in the world. Kindness always. Love yourself, love everyone else, and as always, guys, try to find peace. See you next time.